I murmured dismissively. I miss him terribly. Faith, oh, honestly, not at all. Adrian caught that thought. And how he wished he couldn't hear Luna's inner voice just now. After we chatted for a few moments, I eagerly steered the conversation toward what really mattered. Father, I encountered young Stella's son earlier today. The poor boy seems so miserable. Father, Duke Kane treats him terribly, and I'd like to help him somehow. Adrian's lips pressed together in a troubled line. He'd always maintained a policy of staying out of his minister's family affairs. His voice came slowly, hesitant. Well, that is rather. I could see Father's reluctance, and couldn't help but grumble inwardly. Honestly, if you don't intervene, just wait for that boy to grow up dark and bitter, ready to take your head and steal your throne. Adrian's heart lurched. Young Stella's son, of course. This was the very person Luna had mentioned before, the one who would rebel in a dozen years or so. He hadn't expected the boy to be so young. Perhaps if he dealt with him now, Father wouldn't actually be planning to eliminate the boy right now, would he? I nestled closer to the dragon throne, eyeing Adrian with deep suspicion. Surely not. Surely not. Adrian cleared his throat softly. Avoiding my gaze, oh dear, she'd caught on. I snorted softly. Well, that would be rather short-sighted of him. If young Stella's son were to die, this whole story would likely collapse, and no one could predict what might happen next. Besides, the boy hasn't done anything wrong. He is clearly a victim himself. He only turns dark because of all the mistreatment he suffers. The root of the problem is Duke Kane, that awful father who favors his mistress over his wife, indulging Madame Liu and her son while neglecting his legitimate heir. After hearing Luna's thoughts, Adrian began to understand the situation more clearly. Young Stella's son would turn vengeful due to childhood abuse. It seemed he would need to take action after all. Adrian looked toward me. What do you think we could do to help young Stella's son? Luna, I considered this thoughtfully. We could summon Duke Kane to the palace and give him a stern talking, to frighten him a bit. See how he reacts. Then decide on our next steps accordingly. After all, we can't simply eliminate Duke Kane outright. Young Stella's mother, Lady Song, is still very much in love with her husband. And poor Lady Song is seriously ill right now. Adrian nodded, quite pleased with my suggestion. The House of Stella held the unique distinction of being the only family granted a hereditary dukedom outside the royal bloodline. Their ancestor had been a founding hero of the Great Moon dynasty, rewarded with noble rank and privileges. The legitimate eldest son of each generation inherited the ducal title, and the family had proven themselves worthy throughout the generations. Even now, the House of Stella maintained considerable power and influence. Indeed, they couldn't simply move against Duke Kane directly. This matter would require careful consideration. I spent the remainder of the evening in the royal study before returning to Crystal Palace. As Nina and I walked hand in hand through the palace doors, I immediately sensed something amiss. The atmosphere felt different. Celeste sat rigidly on the central dais, her expression unusually stern. I swallowed nervously. If my guess was correct, Mother appeared to be quite displeased. Her lips formed a tight line as she spoke with rare severity. Luna Vale, did you involve yourself in some sort of incident today? Oh no, Mother used my full name. I am no longer her precious Luna. I quickly ran to Celeste's side, reaching for her hands and beginning to wheedle. Realizing concealment would be futile, I decided confession was the better path. Mother, that dreadful boy was tormenting young Stella's son first. I simply couldn't stand by and watch, so I arranged for someone to teach him a small lesson. My indignation was quite genuine, and I even waved my little fists for emphasis. Celeste's brow furrowed. You sent 20 palace servants to deal with him. You call that a small lesson? I blinked innocently. Oh, did they actually follow through? Celeste replied with exasperation. Of course they did. I witnessed it myself. I nodded with satisfaction. Well. Good. Though next time I should probably bring more people, just in case that boy brings reinforcements. I certainly don't intend to be at a disadvantage. I watched Mother's increasingly stern expression and didn't dare voice any further protests, keeping my complaints internal. But somehow, her expression grew even more forbidding. Celeste drew a deep breath. She truly hadn't expected that her daughter, who appeared so perfectly behaved in her presence, was actually quite the little terror when out and about. Immediately dispatching 20 servants to handle a duke's eldest son. What would she get up to next? Just as Celeste prepared to deliver a proper lecture, I spoke first. Mother, I truly didn't mean to cause trouble. It is just that the boy was being absolutely dreadful. I gazed at her with wide, innocent eyes, my expression soft and appealing. When I was walking through the Imperial Garden today, I happened upon that awful boy beating young Stella's son with a large wooden stick. This isn't the first time such a thing has happened. That bully constantly takes advantage of his size to torment the poor child, leaving him covered in injuries. He even deliberately knocks over the boy's lunch, forcing him to attend classes hungry all day long. I tilted my head questioningly. Don't you think such behavior is truly wicked, Mother? I simply wanted to teach him a lesson, so he'd stop tormenting that poor boy. Celeste's lips softened slightly. She truly hadn't known about any of this. It seemed her Luna possessed quite a strong sense of justice indeed. Still, she felt compelled to add a word of caution. Nevertheless, he remains Duke Kane's son. You mustn't be too harsh. I nodded earnestly. Don't worry, Mother. I'll let him keep his miserable life. Celeste sighed internally. What a little tyrant indeed. Well, Luna had always been decisive, and generally knew when to exercise restraint. She needn't interfere further. If any real trouble arose, she would certainly protect her daughter. Celeste sighed softly, taking my small hand in hers. Her voice gentled considerably. Come along, let's go have our dinner. I brightened immediately. Wonderful. I love dining with Mother. Mother's not angry anymore. As long as Mother's not upset, everything's perfectly fine. After dinner, I curled up drowsily on the elegant couch while Celeste worked at her desk, reviewing the palace account ledgers. With her new authority over palace administration, and both the Empress and Empress Dowager absent from the palace, she essentially managed all palace affairs. Every large and small matter required her attention, keeping her extraordinarily busy each day. As I drifted between sleep and wakefulness, I heard someone enter. Your Highness, the Internal Affairs Department has sent 2 new maidservants, one called Jade, another named Violet. Celeste nodded. Very well, we shall retain both. Upon hearing these names, I snapped fully awake. Oh my, that Violet belongs to Sophia. Sophia clearly hasn't changed her wicked ways one bit. She is still scheming against Mother in secret. The original story. Sophia planted this Violet in another consort's palace to frame her. I never expected she'd try this trick on Mother now. Celeste's heart clenched at these thoughts. Without Luna's warning, she might never have noticed such a thing. She might have fallen victim to Sophia's schemes without ever knowing. After a moment's consideration, Celeste said calmly, keep both of them. You may withdraw for now. Yes, Your Highness. Both Jade and Violet curtsied respectfully before withdrawing. The moment they left the hall, Celeste turned to Nina with instructions. Keep a close watch on that Violet. Monitor her every move carefully. I immediately relaxed with relief. Faye knew Mother was too clever to miss something suspicious. She'll definitely notice if anything's amiss. Hearing this, Celeste allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. Meanwhile, at the Duke Kane's residence, Madame Liu gazed at her son's bruised and swollen face with trembling hands. My precious boy, whatever happened to you? The child wailed loudly. I don't know today. Just before I could leave the palace grounds, someone threw a sack over my head and beat me thoroughly in the bushes. Madame Liu frowned. Son, did you offend someone? He cried even harder. Mother, I truly don't know. Madame Liu gently stroked his head, comforting him. There, my dear. Tell Mother. Who did you encounter in the palace today? The boy stopped crying, squinting his small eyes as he struggled to remember. I met the 5th princess. Madame Liu's frown deepened. Anyone else besides the 5th princess? He shook his head blankly. No, only the 5th princess. Madame Liu fell into troubled thought. Currently, the 5th princess enjoyed her father's greatest favor, while her mother Celeste wielded administrative authority over the 6 palaces. The Vale family's position at court continued to rise, with Celeste's younger brother receiving an extraordinary promotion to General of the Pacifying Borders, commanding military affairs. Such influential people were far beyond what their family could afford to offend. But why would the 5th princess have someone attack her son? What were you doing when you encountered the 5th princess today? Madame Liu asked. The boy straightened proudly. I was beating that Stella boy with a wooden stick. Understanding dawned on Madame Liu. The 5th princess must have grown angry seeing him attack someone. She looked at her son seriously. From now on, you mustn't openly bully young Stella's son anymore. It gives people cause to criticize you. The boy blinked in confusion. Mother, what is cause to criticize? Can you eat it? I want to eat some cause to criticize, Madame Liu sighed. Her boy might be a bit slow, but that was perfectly fine. Perhaps he'd grow cleverer as he matured. For now, he was simply playful. When Madame Liu didn't respond, the boy began crying again. Mother, today I heard people saying behind my back that I am a bastard, and that Stella's son is the legitimate heir. I don't want to be a bastard, Mother. I don't want to be a bastard. Madame Liu gathered him into her arms, patting his head as she soothed him repeatedly. There, you won't be a bastard. You won't be. As her son gradually quieted in her embrace, Madame Liu gazed out the window, her eyes flashing with cold determination. Don't worry, my dear. Mother will ensure you become the legitimate heir. The position of principal wife would be hers, sooner or later, at that same moment. In another courtyard of the Duke's residence, white smoke drifted slowly from a bronze incense burner. From within the gauze bed curtains came the sound of persistent coughing. Lady Song lay pale and wan upon her sick bed. My lady, your medicine is ready, came a gentle voice. Peach Blossom entered carrying a bowl of dark herbal brew. Young Stella's son watched that medicine bowl with suddenly cold eyes. Noticing his gaze, Peach Blossom's hands trembled uncontrollably as she held the bowl. Why was the young master looking at her like that? Had he discovered something? Impossible. She'd been so careful to hide everything. Despite her inner turmoil, years of habit allowed Peach Blossom to carry the medicine steadily to the bedside table. She lifted the bed curtains, saying softly, My lady, time for your medicine. Peach Blossom raised the bowl, preparing to feed Lady Song as usual. Wait. The young master's childish but cold voice rang out. Peach Blossom's hands shook so violently that even Lady Song noticed. What is wrong? Peach Blossom opened her mouth to speak, but young Stella's son interrupted. He stepped closer to the bed, his voice softening considerably. I'd like to help Mother with her medicine myself. Lady Song saw no reason to refuse this filial gesture from her son. Young Stella's son looked toward Peach Blossom, his expression unreadable. You may go now. Peach Blossom nodded quickly, placing the medicine on the side table before bowing and withdrawing. Young Stella's son stared at that bowl of medicine, his lips pressed tight. Lady Song's pale lips barely moved. What is it? Please bring the medicine here. Seeing his hesitation, Lady Song struggled to sit up, reaching for the bowl herself, but young Stella's son suddenly fell to his knees with a crash, his gaze intensely serious. Mother, you cannot drink this medicine anymore. It has been poisoned. Lady Song's body shook as she gripped the bed covers tightly. What did you say? Young Stella's son had prepared his explanation carefully. After all, he couldn't tell his mother he'd learned this from overhearing the fifth princess's thoughts. She'd never believe him. After a pause, he said slowly, I saw Peach Blossom secretly adding something to your medicine, and she has been meeting frequently with Madame Liu's people. Lady Song immediately shook her head. No, impossible. Peach Blossom came to serve me when I entered this household. How could she possibly betray me? Young Stella's son looked up. Then you don't believe me, Mother. Lady Song fell silent, finally saying helplessly, Please get up. The floor is cold. He shook his head, his young face showing stubborn determination. No, Mother, if you don't believe me, I won't get up. And Mother, haven't you found it strange? You've been taking medicine for so long without any improvement. In fact, you've grown worse. When I was small, you could still hold me and play. Now you can barely leave your bed. After hearing this, Lady Song's doubt transformed into deep fear and unease. Indeed, it was exactly as he described. She lowered her eyes, lashes fluttering. Please stand up. Mother believes you. As for Peach Blossom, Peach Blossom has served me faithfully for so long. I cannot simply dismiss her immediately. Her gaze fell on the medicine bowl. But I will not drink this medicine anymore. Young Stella's son felt considerably relieved. Mother, perhaps we should bring in a physician from outside to examine you. Lady Song considered this. Very well, tomorrow. You may go to the study. Take the ducal seal, and summon a court physician. He bowed. Yes, Mother. After they spoke a while longer, young Stella's son returned to his room. Lady Song watched his departing figure, rubbing her temples wearily. A maidservant entered, her trusted companion Bright Moon. Lady Song finally relaxed. Bright Moon approached. My lady, what troubles you? Lady Song looked up, giving quiet instructions. Go tell Peach Blossom that the young master accidentally spilled the medicine earlier. Ask her to prepare another bowl. Watch her secretly. See if she adds anything to the medicine. Bright Moon's heart jumped in shock, but she asked no questions and immediately left to carry out the task. Lady Song watched Bright Moon's retreating figure and sighed. She didn't distrust her son, but he was still so young. It was possible he'd made a mistake. Peach Blossom had come to serve her after her marriage into the ducal household. But Bright Moon was different. Bright Moon had grown up with her. She would never betray her. An hour later, Bright Moon stumbled back into the room, trembling all over. My lady, I saw it. That Peach Blossom, when no one was watching, secretly added white powder to your medicine. Lady Song drew a deep breath, struggling to contain her roiling emotions. Indeed. Bright Moon spoke with panic in her voice. My lady. What should we do? Who would want to harm us? Lady Song gave a cold laugh. Who else could it be? In this household, no one wishes for my death more than she does. The following day, I announced cheerfully. Mother, I've finished eating. Setting down my chopsticks, I gazed hopefully at Celeste. She sighed helplessly. I nodded enthusiastically. Just to admire the flowers in the imperial garden and take a pleasant stroll. Faye must hurry to find young Stella's son and ask about his mother's condition, and I need to send a message to Sister Feng. I require her assistance. I heard the imperial kitchen is developing new pastries that I simply must try. Celeste sighed internally. You certainly keep busy. Seeing that I had indeed eaten well, she gave her permission, taking Nina's hand. I hurried from Crystal Palace at a quick trot. After several days of such excursions, I'd become quite adept at navigating the palace grounds. My little legs moved swiftly as I headed straight for yesterday's lakeside meeting spot. Meanwhile, Celeste watched my departing figure with pursed lips. His Majesty had been occupied with border military affairs recently, and hadn't been taking Luna to the royal study daily as before. So now Luna spent each day playing about the palace. While such activities were natural for a child, Luna was already over 3 years old. Perhaps it was time to begin her education. She'd speak with His Majesty about enrolling Luna in the Palace Academy soon. When I reached yesterday's lakeside location, I discovered young Stella's son already waiting. He'd arrived before me. Faywell, this boy is quite eager indeed. He arrived earlier than I did. Hearing the familiar voice, young Stella's son turned. I waved cheerfully and hurried toward him. He bowed formally. Greetings to your highness. I smiled brightly. No need for such ceremony. Just call me Luna. He nodded. Very well, Princess Luna. You are doing this on purpose, aren't you? Though young Stella's son's eyes sparkled with mischief, he quickly grew serious. As your highness predicted, that Peach Blossom has indeed been poisoning my mother. Yesterday evening he'd witnessed Peach Blossom preparing fresh medicine while Bright Moon secretly observed from the shadows. Later, both bowls of medicine were poured beneath a large tree in the rear courtyard. It appeared his mother now completely believed him. I looked at young Stella's son, noting how his young face bore a composure far beyond his years, and couldn't help but sigh softly. Fey children who suffer mature early indeed. Meeting his gaze directly, I asked, Do you wish to save your mother? He nodded emphatically. Of course. I pulled a small jade token from within my robes and handed it to him. This is my palace token bearing my name. Take it to an apothecary called Harmony Hall in the Southern District. Present this token to the physician there. She'll accompany you and can save your mother. Young Stella's son had complete faith in my words by now. He accepted the jade token from my small hand, gazing at me with solemn intensity. Your Highness, I owe you my life. Whatever you may require in future, I would gladly sacrifice my life to accomplish it for you. I showed little reaction to this declaration, merely saying calmly, Don't speak of such things now. Hurry and use that token to save your mother. He nodded firmly and departed, watching his figure disappear from view. I literally jumped for joy, pumping my fists in triumph. Yes, Fey heavens. Having young Stella's son owe me a life debt. What tremendous fortune. After leaving the lakeside, young Stella's son went directly to request half a day's leave from his tutor. Nothing was more important than finding treatment for his mother. Taking the token, he headed straight for the Southern District Apothecary, just as Princess Luna had promised. The physician merely glanced at his token before agreeing to accompany him. She didn't even ask who he was. Back at the Duke's residence, a maidservant burst in with urgent news. "Madam, I heard that Lady Song has brought in another physician for consultation." Madame Liu frowned. "What physician? From where?" "A court physician." The maid shook her head vigorously. "A female physician who has been quite renowned in the capital recently. They call her the Divine Healer. People say her medical skills are extraordinary." Madame Liu scoffed. "A mere slip of a girl. What could she possibly accomplish? However skilled she might be, there are limits. Besides, with Peach Blossom secretly administering poison, Lady Song is doomed." She turned slightly toward the maid. "Speaking of which, has Peach Blossom sent any updates?" The maid nodded. "Peach Blossom reports everything remains normal, with no unusual activity." Madame Liu felt reassured. "Good. Tell her to be careful and avoid arousing suspicion." In the main courtyard of the Duke's residence, young Stella's son waited anxiously outside his mother's room. After some time, the door opened and the veiled physician emerged. He immediately stepped forward. "How is my mother?" The masked Feng smiled gently. "Don't worry. Your mother is fine. I've completed the acupuncture treatment, and she is feeling much better already." Young Stella's son immediately bowed deeply. "Thank you, doctor." The veiled Feng nodded slightly, thinking warmly that anyone the fifth princess chose to help truly deserved it. The boy was indeed polite and well-mannered, quite unlike the typical arrogant noble children. Young Stella's son entered the room to find Lady Song sitting up in bed, sipping tea. Seeing him enter, she offered a gentle smile. He approached uncertainly. "Mother, how do you feel now?" Lady Song's expression was bright and relaxed as she set down her teacup. "Much. That physician is truly remarkable. After just one acupuncture session, I no longer feel the terrible heaviness and breathlessness." She continued praising the treatment. It is rare to see a woman practicing medicine, and even more remarkable that her skills are so extraordinary. Indeed, everyone could see the obvious improvement. Her voice was much stronger, and her complexion had a healthy glow. Young Stella's son's anxious heart finally settled. Bright Moon asked hesitantly, "My lady, what should we do about Peach Blossom?" At mention of that name, Lady Song's eyes flashed with cold fury. "Leave her be for now. We mustn't alert her to our suspicions." Finally, she added, "From now on, I'll only take medicine you prepare yourself." Later that afternoon at Crystal Palace, Nina smiled as she announced, "Your Highness, His Majesty has just sent over these shoe brocades. He said the little princess looks most adorable in shoe silk. So he has sent all of this year's new tribute silks for making the princess new garments." I swung my little feet, gazing at the exquisite bolts of shoe brocade spread before me, my eyes bright with delight. Father has excellent taste. I do love people who express their affection through lavish gifts rather than empty words. Hearing Luna's thoughts, Celeste chuckled softly. "Accept them all and send them to the Imperial Tailoring Bureau to be made into new clothes for Luna." His Majesty's devotion to Luna was well known, but sending several hundred bolts of precious shoe brocade was beyond even her expectations. Still, this boded well. Given His Majesty's level of favoritism toward Luna, he certainly wouldn't consider sending her away in a political marriage. Celeste thought about her daughter's future marriage prospects with some melancholy. She pulled me into her lap, personally feeding me sweet porridge. Why is Mother suddenly embracing me? Though having Mother feed me is absolutely wonderful. Celeste smiled. noticing Nina's somewhat anxious expression. "What is it?" Nina glanced at me with some hesitation. Celeste laughed softly, so Nina was worried about speaking in front of Luna. "Speak freely. No need for concern." After all, Luna often knew far more than any of them did. Perhaps letting her hear might provide additional useful information. What is it? I want to hear too." Nina reluctantly proceeded with her report. "That maidservant called Violet secretly buried this in the rear garden last night. This servant witnessed it." She withdrew a small wooden box from her sleeve, presenting it to Celeste with both hands. Celeste looked puzzled. "What is this?" Opening the box, she found a cloth puppet stuck full of needles. Celeste's fingers went rigid as she held the box, her temple pulsing with anger. Good heavens, witchcraft. Father absolutely despises such practices. Sophia is trying to destroy Mother. Celeste drew a deep breath, removing the puppet to examine its reverse side. To her surprise, the birth date inscribed wasn't His Majesty's, nor hers. Nina spoke up. "When this servant discovered it, I was also puzzled. These aren't His Majesty's birth details, nor the Empress Dowager's, nor yours, my lady. But this servant found the date strangely familiar, though I cannot recall whose it might be." "Oh, those are the Empress's birth details. Sophia is quite clever indeed. She knows Mother currently enjoys favor and would have no reason to harm His Majesty, which would obviously be a setup. So she is targeting the Empress instead. After all, if the Empress were gone, Mother could continue managing the 6 palaces. Among all the consorts, Mother is currently most likely to inherit the Empress position. If Father were a bit less astute, he might actually believe such a scheme." After hearing these thoughts, Celeste's back broke out in cold sweat. "Sophia's strategy was truly vicious," Nina asked quietly. "Your Highness, what should we do?" Celeste smiled coldly. "We'll use her own methods against her." She handed the box to Nina while whispering instructions in her ear. Nina nodded and immediately left to carry out the plan. That evening, "Luna, do you like the shoe brocades Father sent you?" Adrian laughed heartily as he entered, scooping up the little girl playing with dolls on the carpet and affectionately pinching her cheek. I nodded enthusiastically. "I love them. Absolutely love them. Though next time, if you could just convert the shoe silk directly into gold, I'd love that even more." Adrian sighed internally. Typical. Celeste immediately rose and curtsied. "Greetings to your Majesty." Adrian waved dismissively. "Please, sit." He carried me to the dining table, which was already laden with delicious dishes. As Adrian dined, he occasionally served me various delicacies from the dishes. When the moment seemed right, Celeste set down her jade soup spoon and spoke carefully. "This servant heard reports today concerning some matters at Sophia's Serene Clarity Palace." Adrian's eyebrows rose slightly. "Serene Clarity Palace? That is Sophia's residence, isn't it?" My father actually remembers." "How wonderful!" Adrian bristled internally. He wasn't senile yet. Of course he'd remember such basic information. Actually, he wasn't even old at all. Celeste nodded, sighing softly. "Indeed. Ever since Duke Kane's imprisonment, Sister Sophia has wept daily. Perhaps your Majesty should visit her." Adrian pressed his lips together thoughtfully. Celeste didn't know about Sophia's attempt to poison the Crown Prince. That single incident alone meant he never wanted to see Sophia again for the rest of his life. Moreover, Duke Kane's treasonous plotting was also connected to Sophia. The only reason he hadn't executed Sophia already was out of consideration for the third prince. I continued eating pastries, making a small huffing sound. Fayfather really should go take a look. What he finds there will give him quite a shock. Hearing this, Adrian perked up attentively. What could possibly shock him? Originally, Adrian hadn't been particularly inclined to visit, but after that comment, he felt compelled to investigate. The following morning, after handling official business, Adrian recalled the matter. He proceeded directly to Serene Clarity Palace. Adrian instructed his retinue to wait outside while only Eunuch Chen accompanied him inside. He was curious to see exactly what Sophia had done that could startle him. Upon entering, Adrian immediately noticed a maidservant hurrying away in the distance, glancing around nervously as she moved with obvious caution. Adrian raised an eyebrow. How suspicious. Eunuch Chen started to call out to stop the servant, but Adrian raised a hand to prevent him. Follow her. Let's see what she is up to. Adrian and Eunuch Chen carefully tailed the maidservant. Since Sophia was confined to Serene Clarity Palace, and with Duke Kane's imprisonment casting a shadow over the residence, the palace was practically deserted. Adrian followed the servant to the rear garden without encountering another soul. The maidservant stopped beneath a large tree, digging up a small mound of earth and retrieving a box. Adrian and Eunuch Chen immediately approached, Adrian calling out sternly. How dare you? What are you holding? The startled servant's trembling hands dropped the box. She turned, saw the emperor, and immediately prostrated herself. Her voice shook with terror. This servant greets your majesty. Adrian gestured to Eunuch Chen, who quickly retrieved the wooden box. The servant reached out instinctively to stop him, then froze under Eunuch Chen's intimidating glare. Adrian opened the box to find a puppet bristling with needles. Turning it over, he discovered his own birth date inscribed upon it. Eunuch Chen shrieked. Treacherous servant! Confess immediately. This is a crime punishable by extermination of 9 generations. The maidservant frantically kowtowed until blood appeared on her forehead. Your Majesty, please forgive this servant. This servant didn't create this puppet. Your Majesty must investigate. Lady Sophia made this puppet and ordered this servant to bury it beneath the tree, covered with fresh blood for effectiveness. But this servant's conscience troubled her greatly. Your Majesty is a benevolent ruler, and this servant couldn't bear to harm you. So I waited until Lady Sophia's afternoon rest to secretly retrieve and destroy the puppet. Adrian's expression darkened with fury. How detestable. He'd originally planned to simply confine Sophia to Serene Clarity Palace for life out of consideration for the third prince. But she remained so incorrigibly wicked. Who knew what other schemes she might devise if left unchecked? Carrying the box, Adrian strode toward the main hall. He burst through the doors to find Sophia awakening from her afternoon nap. Hastily donning her outer robes, she looked up to see who had caused such a commotion. Upon seeing Adrian, Sophia's eyes lit up with joy. Your Majesty! She cried with delight. Had His Majesty suddenly come to visit her, perhaps he'd forgiven her. But her smile quickly faded. Adrian laughed coldly, hurling the wooden box at her feet. Explain this to us. The box shattered upon impact, revealing the needle-studded puppet. Sophia stared at it in horror, speechless. This puppet, how could it be here? Adrian watched her expression with icy fury. This puppet was found buried beneath a tree in your rear garden. Sophia, you dared attempt witchcraft against your emperor. Sophia's blood seemed to freeze as cold sweat broke out across her back. Harm His Majesty. How could it be harming His Majesty? She immediately fell to the ground, grabbing the puppet to examine it. Her eyes widened in shock. It truly bore His Majesty's birth date. Adrian had no patience for further discussion. By imperial decree, Sophia has practiced witchcraft against the throne. Imprison her in the dungeons for execution after autumn. Eunuch Chen immediately bowed. By your command, Adrian cast one final cold glance at Sophia, who was behaving like a madwoman on the floor. Then turned and left. Sophia struggled to plead for mercy, sobbing hysterically. Your Majesty, this servant is innocent. How could I dare curse your Majesty? She had indeed created this puppet, but the birth date on it should have been different, and the puppet should have appeared in Celeste's palace. How had it ended up in her own residence? What was happening? Eunuch Chen waved his hand, and the guards waiting outside immediately dragged Sophia from Serene Clarity Palace to the dungeons. Soon news of these events spread throughout the palace. At Crystal Palace, Nina heard the news and rushed into the hall with joy. Seeing her approach, Celeste quietly shushed her. Her attention returned to the bed where I was drowsily settling down for a post-meal nap. Nina lowered her voice. Your Highness, it is accomplished. Sophia has been imprisoned. Celeste's expression showed little triumph. Her voice was calm. Give the maidservant who helped us 200 taels of silver when she leaves the palace at month's end. Tell her it is for her mother's medical treatment. Nina nodded. Yes, Your Highness. This servant will handle everything. Celeste watched the white smoke drifting from the carved incense burner. Her lips pressed thin. She had switched the birth dates on the puppet's back. She had also arranged for the maidservant to ensure His Majesty witnessed that scene and discovered the puppet. Sophia's desire to harm her would not have ended with one attempt. There would have been a second, a third time. She would show absolutely no mercy. She had only one precious daughter. She would protect Luna and herself. As I drifted between sleep and wakefulness, hearing their conversation, Sophia brought this entirely upon herself. I just feel sorry for my third brother. Asterisk in the dungeons, Sophia huddled in a corner of her cell surrounded by damp, putrid odors. She leaned against the wall, her mind racing as she tried to understand what had gone wrong. Violet was her spy planted in Celeste's, but Violet was a piece she'd never activated before, always keeping her as an ordinary servant. How had Celeste discovered her? And that puppet? How had it suddenly appeared in His Majesty's hands? As Sophia pondered these questions, she heard the respectful voice of a guard outside. Third Prince. Lady Sophia is here. Sophia immediately rushed to the cell door. Soon, a white-robed, jade-belted young man appeared before her. Seeing him, Sophia remembered recent events and immediately flew into a rage. You unfilial child, how dare you come here? Your grandfather was imprisoned, and you never once pleaded for him. Raising you was completely worthless. You heartless, traitorous wretch. The third prince showed no anger, his pale face remaining emotionless. Long lashes barely trembling. When Sophia received no response, her voice softened slightly as her anger subsided. Remembering her current situation, she suddenly adopted a pitiful expression. My dear son, Mother has been wrongly accused. Please go beg your father to release me. Your father loves you dearly. If you ask. The third prince pressed his lips together, his clear voice coming slowly. Even if I pleaded, father wouldn't listen to me. Sophia hated nothing more than his gentle, weak demeanor. He had none of a ruler's commanding presence. Her anger flared again. You won't know unless you try. Kneel at the palace gates for 3 days. 5 days kneel until you die there. If you don't go, I'll never acknowledge you as my son again. If it weren't for your indecisiveness, your grandfather's plan would have succeeded long ago. How could I have given birth to such a useless child? You worthless fool, failure, disgrace to the house of Duke Kane. The third prince's handsome face grew increasingly cold. This afternoon, upon learning of his mother's imprisonment, he'd been deeply worried and rushed here immediately. He hadn't expected her to be exactly as he most disliked, still the same as always. After Sophia finished her tirade, she felt somewhat better. She glared at the third prince. Why aren't you speaking? The third prince's lashes trembled slightly. I have nothing to say. After a pause, I understand. Sophia watched his retreating figure and shouted after him. What do you understand? Speak clearly. You unfilial son. When I die, you'll have no mother left. You'll face retribution. The next day, I slowly opened my eyes to find myself in the room. I'd rather be sleeping beside mother. Hearing my thoughts, Adrian turned to look at the drowsy little figure beside him and couldn't help but chuckle. He'd been handling border military affairs recently, working from dawn to dusk, which was why he hadn't brought Luna to the royal study. Now that border matters were properly arranged, he'd brought Luna back. After all, Luna had read that heavenly book and knew many important things. His governance of the realm couldn't do without Luna's insights. Adrian glanced at eunuch Chen, who immediately understood and brought over my favorite milk tea and osmanthus cakes. Fey amazing. These are all my favorites. Coming to the royal study isn't so bad after all. Adrian ruffled my hair affectionately. Do you like them, Luna? I nodded enthusiastically. Love them. Love them. Fey, everything's delicious, long live father. Adrian's lips curved upward as he returned to reviewing memorials. His gaze fell upon the latest report, and his brow furrowed. Flooding in Ning City, many lives have already been lost. Hearing this familiar name, I looked up with interest. Fey, the original story did indeed feature these floods. Though there were some minor complications during the resolution, everything worked out in the end. The flood victims received proper assistance, and not too Fey, speaking of which, resolving these floods actually involved young Stella's son somehow. Adrian pricked up his ears, hoping to learn about these complications. But, unexpectedly, Luna's thoughts immediately shifted elsewhere. These osmanthus cakes are truly delicious. I love them so much. The best part of coming to the royal study is getting to eat these wonderful cakes. Adrian sighed internally. So seeing him wasn't the highlight. Well, never mind. He'd wanted to ask about the floods anyway. According to Luna, the situation would ultimately be resolved successfully. He'd have Prime Minister Wang handle this matter for now. After finishing 2 osmanthus cakes, I suddenly remembered something important and turned to ask seriously. Father, why haven't you summoned Duke Kane for that stern talking? To yet, this matter is crucial to preventing young Stella's son from turning dark. Father couldn't have forgotten, could he? I always said his memory wasn't very good. Adrian bristled internally. He had not. He was not. His memory was excellent. Adrian cleared his throat, explaining. We sent him to inspect the eastern regions. He is currently not in the capital. It wasn't because his memory was poor, I blinked curiously. When will he return? Adrian considered briefly. According to the latest reports, he should arrive tomorrow evening. Before I could respond, a sharp voice called from outside. Third Prince requests an audience. Adrian's eyebrows rose. Grant him entry. Soon, a white-robed young man glided gracefully into the hall. The youth stood tall and elegant with an ethereal bearing, his features refined and scholarly. Feiwo, long time no see. He has grown even more handsome. The third prince heard the voice, and turned to meet a pair of beautiful, unblinking eyes gazing at him. He inclined his head slightly toward me with a gentle smile. Fei. Third brother smiled at me. But why is third brother here to see father? Surely not to plead for Sophia. Adrian shared this assumption. He supposed his third son had come to petition for Sophia's mercy. Looking at his third son, Adrian sighed softly. From childhood, the boy had favored music and painting. Adrian had initially thought this was deliberate concealment, that the prince knew the crown prince was his preferred heir, and deliberately appeared unambitious to avoid attention. But it seemed the third prince genuinely loved these pursuits. He'd seen the boy's artwork, which was truly exceptional and worthy of preservation for posterity. The third prince possessed a gentle nature and sensitive heart. He wasn't suited for imperial rule. Still, he remained Adrian's son, and if he truly insisted on pleading for Sophia, this son did not come to petition for mother. The third prince's clear voice interrupted these thoughts. Both Adrian and I looked surprised. Oh, Adrian quickly recovered. Then what brings you here? The third prince bowed respectfully, his handsome face expressionless. This son heard that father recently acquired an ancient musical score, and hoped you might allow me to borrow it for study. Adrian nodded. Indeed, we recently received such a score from consort. Ru, since you wish it, we shall give it to you. Eunuch Chen, fetch the musical score. Eunuch Chen bowed and soon returned with the score, presenting it to the third prince. Adrian watched his son's pleased expression but couldn't help asking, "You truly won't plead for your mother?" The third prince pressed his lips together without directly answering. Meanwhile, I felt a jolt of alarm. Feo, no. Father isn't testing third brother, is he? He doesn't suspect third brother was involved in Duke Kane's rebellion. Does he? Fei heaven knows. Third brother truly knew nothing. In the original story, Duke Kane and Sophia never told him anything at all. Fei third brother only learned the truth on the day Duke Kane raised his rebellion. But father didn't believe him then, and had third brother executed that very day. Adrian froze upon hearing this. He had killed his third son. Actually, regarding Duke Kane's affairs, Adrian had initially harbored some suspicion toward the third prince. After all, if Duke Kane's rebellion succeeded, they would certainly put the third prince on the throne with Duke Kane as regent. Though suspicious, Adrian felt he understood this son fairly well. Moreover, he had always trusted Luna's words unconditionally. If Luna said the third prince knew nothing, then he certainly knew nothing. Adrian's thoughts returned to the present, his voice heavy. As for Sophia, we will spare her life but confine her to the cold palace without any servants. She may live out her remaining days there. Adrian sighed softly. Duke Kane's clan had either rebelled or embezzled. Those he'd executed were dead. Those exiled were gone. If he killed Sophia too, the third prince would truly have no maternal family left. The third prince was still his son, and Adrian's heart ached for him. The third prince knelt and kowtowed. This son thanks father for your gracious mercy. After this formal acknowledgement, the third prince departed the royal study. The cold autumn wind caught his robes, making his retreating figure appear particularly lonely and desolate. Walking quietly with Qin Yun, neither spoke. Last night, lying on his bed, he'd reviewed his entire childhood. He suddenly realized that his mother had never once praised him. She was always dissatisfied with him, always angry with him. After beating him bloody, she would suddenly begin apologizing. To her, he was merely a tool. Mother had never truly loved him. With these thoughts, he'd spent a sleepless night. So today, he truly hadn't planned to plead for her. As the third prince walked slowly along the cobblestone path, a clear, childish voice called from behind. "Third brother." He turned to see me running toward him on little legs, holding I trotted up to the third prince, looked up with a brilliant smile that revealed my dimples. In my sweet voice, I announced, "Third brother, Luna brought you osmanthus cakes." Opening the wooden box, I revealed 5 perfectly arranged osmanthus cakes. The third prince's heart melted instantly. He crouched down to meet my beautiful eyes at eye level. He didn't know what to say, feeling only warmth flowing through his heart. I picked up an osmanthus cake and offered it to the third prince. My eyes sparkled. "Osmanthus cake. Very delicious," Fei sigh. Third brother is truly pitiable. The relationship between him and Sophia is incredibly complicated. He must be feeling terrible right now. Fei Hai hopes sweet osmanthus cakes can cheer third brother up a little. The third prince's lips curved in a gentle smile. He accepted the cake and tasted it. I said cheerfully, "Last time third brother gave me cloud cakes, so this time I am treating third brother to osmanthus cakes." Fei He, third brother looks so handsome when he smiles. So gentle. The third prince felt surrounded by rich osmanthus fragrance. After finishing the cake, sweet flavor lingered in his mouth. He looked at the exquisitely adorable little girl before him, his lips curving upward. "Thank you, little sister." I tilted my head. "Third brother can just call me Luna from now on." The third prince's expression was tender. "Very well, Luna." Just then, Nina hurried up from behind. "Princess, you ran so fast that this servant couldn't keep up." Seeing the third prince, Nina immediately curtsied. "Greetings to the third prince. This servant must escort the princess back to Crystal Palace for the midday meal." The third prince nodded. "Please, take the princess back." I handed him the entire box of osmanthus cakes. "All for you, third brother. Fei, remember to eat proper meals too." Then I took Nina's hand and departed. Watching my small figure gradually disappear into the distance, the third prince pressed his lips together and turned to his companion. Winter approaches, send warm clothing and bedding to the cold palace. Sophia remained his blood mother. He couldn't completely ignore her, but he would never visit her again. At the cold palace, Sophia sat staring at the thick bedding and clothing before her. Her once elaborate hairstyle now completely disheveled. After a long moment, she asked quietly, "Did my son send these?" Qin nodded. "Yes." Sophia looked directly at him. "Did he send any letter for me?" Qin shook his head. "His Highness gave no such instruction." "Any message at all?" Qin continued, shaking his head. Sophia swayed, her lips forming a bitter smile. Not even a single word. Her son couldn't even spare her one word at the end. After Qin departed, Sophia gazed at the dilapidated walls around her and the luxurious brocade quilt on her bed. She suddenly felt overwhelmed with sadness. Had she done wrong? But her father had taught her the same way from childhood. For the family's sake, for power. Everything was worthwhile. But now, what had gone wrong? Meanwhile, at Duke Kane's residence, a maid burst through the doors with excitement. "My lady, his lordship has returned. He is heading toward the main courtyard." Lady Song had been practicing calligraphy at her desk. Upon hearing this news, she immediately set down her brush and went to her mirror to arrange her hair. Her lips curved in a pleased smile. Thanks to daily acupuncture from the young divine physician, and 3 doses of medicine daily, she could now move about freely, instead of being bedridden as before. Bright Moon immediately offered praise. "My lady looks so healthy now, with such beautiful, radiant coloring, just like when you were newly married." Lady Song gave her a mock stern look. "You always know just what to say." Her words had barely faded when the door curtains parted, and a tall, handsome man strode in. Upon entering, Duke Kane immediately noticed the room no longer carried the unpleasant medicinal odors of before. Instead, it was filled with pleasant floral and fruity fragrances. He turned to see Lady Song's rosy complexion and forced a stiff smile. "When I departed, you were still so weak. You appear much recovered now." Lady Song nodded with a gentle laugh. "I found a new physician, quite young, but remarkably skilled in treatment." Duke Kane concealed his emotions, offering subdued praise. "Wonderful indeed. The younger generation certainly shows great promise." Lady Song moved to the table, thoughtfully pouring tea and offering it to Duke Kane. He accepted it, barely touching the rim to his lips without actually drinking. His gaze growing distant, Lady Song remained oblivious, still smiling tenderly at him. After brief conversation, Duke Kane rose abruptly. Lady Song looked up at him with some confusion. "Won't your lordship stay a while longer?" Duke Kane looked down at her, explaining with apparent gentleness. "I have official business to handle in my study." Lady Song sighed softly with regret. "Then I bid your lordship farewell." Duke Kane nodded and left the room. Lady Song sat back down, lifting her teacup to drain it completely. Then she suddenly remembered something and called urgently, "Bright Moon, Bright Moon." The maid who had escorted Duke Kane out hurried back inside. "What is it, my lady?" Lady Song spoke warmly. "Please send his lordship a portion of today's fish soup from our small kitchen. His lordship must be hungry after his long journey. And include some of that smoked duck meat. His lordship loves that dish." After speaking, Lady Song noticed Bright Moon's lack of response and looked toward her questioningly. "Is something wrong?" Bright Moon lowered her head, speaking hesitantly. "My lady, perhaps we needn't send food to his lordship. When this servant escorted his lordship from the courtyard, I saw him heading toward Welcoming Spring Courtyard." Welcoming Spring Courtyard, that was Madame Liu's residence. Lady Song's voice immediately went flat. I see." She reached for her teacup again, but her hands trembled uncontrollably. Her heart churned with anguish. Bright Moon watched with sympathy, immediately offering comfort. "My lady, his lordship does care for you in his heart." Lady Song gave a mocking laugh. "Does his lordship truly care for me?" Bright Moon immediately responded. "Of course he does. Remember how much effort his lordship put into marrying you." This reference sent Lady Song's thoughts drifting. That had been 7 years ago. Though the Song family was the wealthiest in eastern Zhejiang, she was merely a merchant's daughter. Yet Duke Kane had insisted on marrying her, despite all opposition, even requesting an imperial decree from the late emperor. Remembering this, Lady Song's mood improved somewhat. His lordship must care for her, at least a little. At Crystal Palace, Nina reported. Your Highness. A young boy just delivered this jade pendant, saying it was for the little princess. She presented the pendant to Celeste with both hands. Celeste frowned. What young boy was her daughter already attracting suitors at such a young age? Celeste accepted the pendant. What else did the boy say? Nina nodded. He said he was the legitimate son of Duke Kane's household, named Stella's son. Celeste understood. Ah, him again. Luna had apparently helped him before. I was drowsing on the elegant couch when I heard young Stella's son's name, and immediately perked up. What jade pendant? Let me see it, Mother. Please let me see. Celeste smiled helplessly and handed me the pendant. I examined it carefully, discovering it bore a simple engraving of lakes and mountains. Feo ho, this young Stella's son is quite clever. Afraid I can't read yet. So he used pictures to tell me. Tomorrow morning, lakeside meeting, * the following morning. When Eunuch Chen arrived at the usual time to escort me to the royal study, he discovered I wasn't there. Celeste sipped her tea calmly. The princess has other commitments today and cannot visit the royal study. Eunuch Chen looked puzzled. What commitments could a 3-year-old have? Didn't she usually just eat, sleep, and repeat? Eunuch Chen bowed respectfully. This servant dares to ask, what commitments does the princess have? Otherwise this servant cannot properly explain to His Majesty. Celeste replied helplessly. The 5th princess has an appointment today. Meanwhile, Adrian's icy voice carried from the royal study. With whom does the little princess have an appointment? He'd see who dared to be so bold. Eunuch Chen, sensing danger, spoke in an increasingly small voice. With the legitimate son of Duke Kane's household. Young Stella's son. Adrian's brow furrowed. Young Stella's son. Wasn't that the supposed male lead? Adrian snorted coldly with anger. Summon Duke Kane to the royal study tomorrow? He needed to resolve this Duke Kane situation immediately. He couldn't allow this Duke's son to keep bothering his precious Luna. By the lakeside, 2 children sat side by side on the grass. My mother's health has truly improved greatly. She can now walk in the courtyard and enjoy the fresh air. Young Stella's son's voice carried new lightness. I smiled brightly, my eyes sparkling. Really, that is wonderful news. He nodded. Yes, truly. Then he withdrew an exquisite wooden box and offered it to me. This is for you, as thanks. I accepted the box and opened it with my small hands. Inside lay a magnificent large golden bracelet. The bracelet featured multiple gold settings connected by intertwining leaf patterns. Red and blue gemstones adorned each setting along with pearls, creating harmonious and luxurious coloring. My eyes went wide. Feo, my goodness. This is absolutely my dream bracelet. So gorgeous and golden. I love it. Hearing my thoughts. Young Stella's son's lips curved in satisfaction. He'd known I would appreciate it. I blinked innocently. This must be terribly expensive. I couldn't possibly accept such a valuable gift. Please take it back. Faye, please. Please don't agree to take it back. Young Stella's son chuckled softly. You saved my mother's life. No gift, however precious, could compare to what you've done. Finally, I had to reluctantly accept it. Then I suddenly seemed to remember something, and turned to ask, Wait, you didn't take this from your mother's jewelry box, did you? Young Stella's son replied helplessly, Of course not. I used my own saved money to buy this from Precious Treasure Pavilion. The shopkeeper said it was their store's treasure, and I thought it quite nice. so I purchased it. I fell silent. Honestly, what child could save up so much money? Oh wait, I remember now. Young Stella's son's maternal grandfather is the wealthiest man in eastern Zhejiang, and that is an incredibly rich region. His grandfather is fabulously wealthy. Young Stella's son raised an eyebrow slightly. He hadn't expected her to know even this. His grandfather was indeed very wealthy, giving him more New Year money annually than he received in an entire year at Duke Kane's residence. Moreover, his grandfather cared deeply for him and his mother, sending letters and silver every month, fearing they might suffer at the Duke's residence. Thinking of his grandfather brought comfort to young Stella's son. But his smile soon faded. Unfortunately, the Song family's rise and fall both stem from their wealth. Duke Kane only married young Stella's son's mother for the Song family's money. Young Stella's son was shocked, speechless. I stroked the golden bracelet in the box while fragments of the story involving Lady Song and Duke Kane surfaced in my mind. My little mouth pursed in displeasure. Fayamp, Duke Kane's household only appears prosperous on the surface. In reality, the family fortune has been nearly depleted. When the old Duke Kane was alive, the Stella clan had over a dozen family members serving as court officials. Now only 3 remain, all in minor positions. These minor officials required monetary influence to obtain their posts, combined with the clan's extravagant lifestyle requiring enormous expenditures. Duke Kane decided to marry Lady Song. After Lady Song married into the ducal residence, the Song family worried about their daughter and sent money, properties, and shops monthly. Fearing she might suffer mistreatment, Duke Kane, coveting the Song family wealth, conspired with Madame Liu to poison Lady Song. That is the story for today. Hope you enjoyed this incredible tale. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Subscribe for more captivating stories like this. And don't forget to like and share this